All right, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us today and welcome you to another of our Ohio Lunch and Learn Leadership Series. This is going to be our agenda. We're going to have a quick open and welcome of everyone. Then I would like to share with you some of our upcoming events, chapter news. Then we have our first special guests, our international president of WiNUP, Kristen Duggins, and Nikki Militello. Ugh. Is she on yet? Kristen, can we?
I'm here.
Nikki, teach me how to say your last name.
Militello.
Militello. Nikki Militello. And they will be speaking and sharing some international news with everyone. And then we will introduce our moderator and our speaker for today. We'll have a conversation, and then we'll have an audience Q&A at the end. All right, just a reminder for everyone, this is your 2026 Ohio Chapter Leadership. Reach out to any of us if you have any questions. And our 2026 theme for this year for the Ohio chapter is Ignite Your Potential. And one of the ways that we are igniting your potential is through events that will spark a new learning in you and a desire to grow and develop. With that, our next upcoming event after this, I'm incredibly excited about. WiNUP Ohio will be going to the State House, and as well as having a luncheon at the Athletic Club of Columbus. We have invited 3 representatives from the Ohio House Committee on Energy. We'll have Representative Jody Salvo, Representative Latina Humphrey, and Representative Bride Rose Sweeney. They will be speaking about utility legislation. We'll have we'll have time to ask some questions. So come ready with your questions and get to learn more about utility legislation. After that luncheon, we will be going over to the State House for a tour. Register for that on our website. This slide does have a QR code, but I've also, for my chapter members, sent out a calendar invite that you can follow with the link to register. Then for June, we have some exciting events coming up as well. Our next Lunch and Learn series after this will be on intense ownership, the nuclear perspective. That will be on June 23rd at 12 p.m. It will be featuring Luke Ellis and Scott Daly. Our programming committee have done a great job putting this together. We're really excited for that. Please register for that again on our website. And then on July 14th, one of our members, Sandra Nessing, who happens to be on the board for the Franklin Park Conservatory, has worked with us, and we will be having a Franklin Park Conservatory event with a tour where we will be discussing their sustainability plan and what it means to be on a not-for-profit board and how that partnership has shaped Sandra's life. We will be hearing from Heather Bell, who created their sustainability plan, as well as Sandy. That is a very rough slide that does not have all the details on it because we are still putting it together, but I wanted to make sure to tell everyone about it. If the event is not live for registering today, it will be within the next 2 days. So we want you to keep that in mind. Also, I'm not sure if I told you, the State House tour is on the 27th of May. Then the sustainability tour will be July 14th in July. And we'll be in the AEP Pavilion, so very exciting. All right, and then with that, guys, as much as I have loved leading you for the last 2 years, I would love to pass the baton to my vice chair, Katie Blubaugh, and begin the role of past chair and helping shape the chapter and helping Katie in another way. So in order for me to do that, we would love to have some people run for the 2027 Ohio WiNUP chapter. So why would you run for an officer? It helps build your leadership skills, enhance your PMR development goals, and you can make an impact on the chapter. Guys, we've done some really great things over the last 2 years, and I know all of you could make this even better than I could. And you don't just have to apply for the vice chair, but one of the open positions is our vice chair. They support the chair, they lead in the absence, and they do automatically become the chair after their year as vice chair. We also have an opening for secretary. You're managing the records, you're taking the meeting minutes and providing that into our chapter history. And then the treasurer, we would, welcome anyone who loves finances to oversee our financing, reporting, and chapter accounts. So think about this. We'll be sending out the applications soon. Please get involved. This will help you develop professionally. It expands your network. You're shaping the future of WiNUP Ohio. And I will personally say I have gotten to meet some absolutely amazing people and learned so much through this leadership role. So if you are interested, you can reach out to any of the leadership and we'll be happy to talk to you. So next up on that, in case you didn't notice, this meeting is being recorded. And it is being recorded as part of offering our members, we want to make sure we meet you where you are. And we know that everyone's schedules are incredibly busy and hectic, which means just because we schedule one of our lunch and learns doesn't necessarily mean that day and time is going to work for you. But we have amazing speakers and amazing content, and we don't want our members to miss out on that. So as a result of that, we are recording every one of our lunch and learn sessions and then saving the recording on our website on the Ohio chapter page. So you want to make sure that you're logged in. You want to go to the chapters, toggle over to the Ohio chapter, and then at the very top on the Ohio chapter page, you'll see that link that says Ohio videos. When you click on that, you will be able to see all of the last 2 years recordings and be able to watch them and learn from them in a time that works for you. If you notice on there, you can also click and get to the events we have coming up and register for them right there. And we have other great things on the site. If you have any questions or you're struggling with that, please reach out to us and let us know. And guess what, guys? I'm already tired of talking. So with that, I would love to introduce you to our 2027 or 2026. I'm jumping ahead here, guys. Our 2026 International Leadership. Today, we have with us today our Vice President, President-elect, Nikki Militello. And then we also have our president, our international president, Kristen Duggins. And without delay, I would like to hand it over and press mute on my mic. So thank you, ladies, both for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Angie. Appreciate the introduction. You guys are just killing it in Ohio. I love seeing all the upcoming events. As someone who A, is politically passionate, B, in the generation space, and also a nonprofit board member, those events just excite me. There's so much potential there, and I love your theme of igniting it, because you just never know when you're going to have an event that really resonates with somebody, and you never know, people might pivot and pick something up and it may change them professionally or personally. So I just applaud you all for putting together such amazing events, and I'm super hopeful that at some point this year I'm going to be back out east and I'm going to try to join one. So I'm really looking forward to that and keeping that pin out there just in case. So again, thanks for having us today. We appreciate this opportunity. We just wanted to come and say hey to everyone, but then also kind of go over some of the work that we're doing currently, and then open it up for some questions before we turn it on over to Brenda and Diane. So thanks again for having us here. A couple things just wanted to talk about that we're currently working on is you may have seen some pictures. We recently had another regional event. So it was the second annual regional event down in the Southwest, and it was held in Corpus Christi. Fantastic event. It's just a great opportunity for chapters to come together and expand beyond their region. And so it was a packed room, lots of great speakers, lots of great times. So really excited. That was part of our original strategic plan we had a few years ago, was to start highlighting, if people can't go to conference, what are other opportunities to network outside of their chapter? And it really was a great event. So I just applaud those who put that on. I was really thankful and grateful to be there with them. So we also have coming up, and hopefully a Day of Caring. You know, we really are committed to giving back to our community in multiple ways. And so really excited to see what different chapters are doing and what really resonates within their community, because that is part of the point of this organization, right, is that philanthropic spirit along with the professional development side. So really excited to see that coming to fruition. We're hoping in the coming years, we can slowly start to align that with Women's History Month, which is early in the year, but we all know that takes a lot of planning. So we're slowly getting there. So really, really excited about that. Of course, you've probably seen the registrations out there. There's some really great gifts going on for early registration for our conference in Indianapolis. So I'm geographically not great at where everything is. How far is that from, say, Columbus? How far is Indy from Columbus? Just curious.
Yeah, I was going to say
3
between
hours?
2.5 and 3 hours.
Okay, so that's like not too far from you guys. So hopefully we've got a big support coming from your chapter. So they've got some great gifts out there if for early registration if you're considering that. So it's proving to be a great event, and I mean we're really excited to also install Nikki as our president for next year. That's really looking forward to that partnership that we're going to continue, her and I. So we've also kicked off our mentoring program. We had a great turnout this year for our mentoring program. I know that chapters, I believe Ohio does as well, has something locally, which is great. This program has really deemed fruitful for a lot of our membership base. So really excited about that. And then also just continuing, like you all are doing in Ohio, professional development offerings. And so lots of things on the horizons there. We're continuing to look at member resource groups, kind of like maybe if you're familiar with your company employee resource groups, we're looking at membership resource groups. Are there groups of young mothers, or are there groups of people in leadership, or people wanting to be in leadership? And so really looking at expanding that. So there's a couple other things, but I'm going to let Nikki talk about those because we're excited. But our international committees are off to the races. I mean, just first quarter alone, they were killing it with all the different things that they were proposing. One that is a super hot topic, and I know is near and dear to Angie's heart, is we're looking at possibly a logo refresh. And a lot of times people are like, oh, that kind of, when you talk about rebranding something, it's not a rebrand. It's just, we're calling it a refresh because we got to make sure that we're up with the times, and that we're using our branding materials and our packets consistently, and expanding, on the social platform as well as in print and paper and things of that nature. So our marketing committee is looking at that. So we've just started socializing that conversation, because I know a lot of our chapters do fundraising with things with the logo on it, which is fantastic. But I just want people to be aware that we are having those early conversations about refreshing the logo. And so we went back and looked at historically, and about every 10 to 12 years, we have updated our logos. So we're excited about that potential that could be coming this year. So more to come on that. So I am going to go ahead and turn it on over to Nikki before we open up for questions, because I know she's got some exciting things to share too.
Thanks, Kristen. So for those that don't know me, I am Nikki Militello. I am a member of the Mid-Atlantic chapter of WiNUP and have been since 2018. It has been an exciting but fast year. As Vice President, President-elect, we have just a phenomenal EC this year, and our expanded group with our international committee chairs and our IB reps and our chapter chairs. So a ton going on, as Christian mentioned. Another hot off the press and very, very new is we are looking into creating a STEM Champion Award. We're hoping to roll that out at conference this year, with the first award occurring in 2027, to just really get to one of our missional items where we want to celebrate and support STEM. We want to make sure that we are highlighting chapters that are really taking the time to consider this part of WiNUP's mission, and really just building into that next generation of women in leadership that we hope to kind of bring into the WiNUP organization. Kristen mentioned so many of the other things that we're planning on doing. One of the things I'm starting to do as I ramp up to take the president role next year is starting to really form my goals for 2027 and my vision for where I'd like to see WiNUP go. One of the main things is really building on what Tricia and Kristen have started in really taking WiNUP into the 21st century, revamping some of our logos, technology, offerings to make sure that we are being as accessible to our membership as possible. One of those items that is of personal near and dear to me is looking at our budget. For those that have been involved in WiNUP for a while, the international budget has always kind of been there, but hard to understand. So we'd really like to become a little bit more transparent with that and have a set method for how we're setting and adjusting the budget as we go year to year. That's just the beginning. Luckily, I have a couple months to finish forming what my 2027 year will look like. And luckily, I will still have Kristen to lean on as my immediate past president. Also really looking forward to the formation of the 2027 EC. I don't know if nominations are still open or not. Kristen will have to keep me honest there. But excited to see who has submitted, who gets elected, and really form that partnership and team that we've been able to create this year and keep the positive momentum. So that's what I have. Happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
I did want to, there's something I forgot to mention that we're also excited about, and more to come, is, as you can tell, Nikki and I are excited about recognizing our membership base, because our membership, they're just rock stars, and we want to find opportunities to highlight them. And, you know, one thing we put in play this year was recognizing our members on the international social media channels when they're recognized by the community or by their work or something of that nature. And so we're excited about that. And I'm also excited. I'm in the very, very early phases of bringing this to the EC and the IB, but I'll give you guys a little sneak peek around something we're calling the Acorn Award. And the Acorn Award is for those new members that are brand new, that have just hit it and are killing it at their chapter level. And so we have the Power Award, we have the Oak Award and the Honorary Life. But what about those members that come in and immediately get engaged and immediately step up and just immediately start doing something? So this is going to be an award for our newer members, because we really want to highlight those members as well. The Power Award, you know, you got to be here 3 years, which is great. We're talking about maybe pivoting some of those requirements there to really make sure that we have a lot of new members who come in. And I mean, on our international committees, we've got some chairs that are less than 5 years with WiNUP, but they're just so passionate about what we're doing within WiNUP. And so we want to recognize our new members. And so, like I said, we're calling it the Acorn. Of course, it's an acronym because all our other ones are acronyms, and B, I work for AEP, and we put an acronym with everything. And so when we actually put this out there, we will say what it stands for, but we're really excited about that one. And so that's one thing I really appreciate about the EC this year is we're wanting to be accessible. We're wanting to talk to everybody, understand what the struggles are. What are we doing well? Just keeping us honest and being accessible. And so I appreciate that Nikki's continuing that on, because that was what I was really passionate about, was just making sure that we're all just one big team and that we're all supporting each other in whatever way that looks like. So I know we've got a couple minutes, Angie, before we turn it over. So is there any questions for us that we can answer, or do you have any feedback for us? Because we are definitely open to hearing that. Well, if there's nothing, I'm excited to see what the calendar is going to hold for the rest of the year, because I am going to try to line that up with a work trip, because I want to come see you all. We had such a great time last year when Angie put together the event that we had last summer. So hoping to connect with you all in person, either at conference or maybe at an upcoming Ohio event. So I really appreciate the opportunity to join you all today. Nikki and I are reach out anytime with anything, here to help. And we just appreciate you all joining today. This is just another great benefit of being a member, is offerings like this, and really appreciate Diane and those who really make these valuable and impactful events for our membership. So thank you.
Thank you both for being here. Thanks, Kristen and Nikki, for sharing with us all the amazing things you guys are doing. I know for all of you, I have been incredibly lucky to get to know both these ladies over the last 3 years, and I'm really excited about what we've got going on in International. So with that, let's transition. So thank you all for coming today, and give me just a minute. All right, so welcome to the Lunch and Learn portion today of our meeting. We are really glad to have you here for this Lunch and Learn on career agility, how to keep growing no matter where your path starts. Careers rarely follow a straight line, and today's guest is a great example of what it looks like to keep learning and evolving over time. Diane Fitzgerald began her career as an environmental specialist with the Public Service of Indiana, which is now part of Duke Energy Indiana. In the mid-1980s, she transitioned to American Electric Power as one of the first female professionals and first female manager at Cook Nuclear Power Plant. And then she went on to build a 30-year career with AEP. Over that time, she moved across roles into leadership, ultimately serving as the Vice President of Environmental Affairs, shaping environmental and sustainability strategies during periods of significant change. After that chapter, Diane made another bold move, transitioning to TRC and continuing to apply her experience in new ways. Today's conversation will focus on the real moments behind that journey, the leaps, pivots, stretch movements or moments, and people who shaped her path. We'll also leave time at the end for your questions. So now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Brenda Sears from TRC. Brenda has been an active WiNUP member for the past 5 years, contributing her insight, energy, and collaborative spirit to our group. She's also a colleague of Diane, bringing a unique perspective to today's discussion. We're grateful to have her guiding this conversation. Please join us in welcoming Brenda. Brenda, I'll turn it over to you to lead our discussion. Thank you both, Brenda and Diane, for being here and sharing your story with us.
Amazing intro. Thank you so much, Angie. And thank you all for being here. We are super excited to be able to welcome Diane to our WiNUP Lunch and Learn. And I am honored to get to kind of lead this conversation with her. But again, like Angie said, feel free to drop some questions in the chat, or we will do our best to keep us on schedule and leave some time for Q&A at the end. So good morning, Diane. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right. So Angie mentioned it a little bit. We're going to start early career and kind of just set the foundation for everything we're going to talk about this midday. All right. So like she said, you started at AP, environmental engineer, working at a nuclear power plant. Not sure environmental and nuclear were used much in the same sentence in the 80s, but so I know you're going to hit on that, but you're also going to hit on what it was like to be one of the first women professionals at Cook Nuclear, and how that early experience shapes how you approach challenges, so take us through it. What happened at the beginning? How was it? And how do you carry forward some of those lessons?
Sure, thank you. So I think it's probably transformative for anyone to work at a nuclear power plant. But as this has really been a cool exercise for me to go back and really think through, how my career has evolved. And I'm thinking of actually printing this off and giving it to my kids because I think they had no idea what I did when they were growing up. But think back to 1984 is when I joined. And I'm sure many of you guys on this call were not even born yet, right? So I fully acknowledge that. But it was very transformative for a couple of reasons. I didn't seek out working at a nuclear power plant. I didn't have a nuclear engineering degree, but a number of things just fell into place that I just kind of ended up there. Angie mentioned that I was working for Public Service Indiana. I mean, I'll be frank, I came to AEP because I lost my job at PSI. I was at one of those early power plants back in the early 1980s that was under construction and failed wide open because of the fallout from 3 Mile Island. So I was really devastated by that, but I'm very thankful to land at AEP at Cook Plant. And I should say, for those of you on the call who don't know where Cook Plant is, I'm from Michigan. We always do this. Here's Cook Plant right over here. Detroit's over here. So we're talking about southwestern Michigan, right across from Chicago is where that plant is located. It is also the only nuclear plant that AEP has ever had. And it remains operable today. I think it's on its third license extension. It's run by, quality people. And I take that with me wherever I go to, all those lessons that I learned. I think, though, that when I showed up there, I was a bit naive about, fitting in. I just thought, I'm here to do a job. I'm just going to do it. But there were some people there that did view me differently, being a professional woman. And I think there were rumors that somehow I was benefiting from favoritism. So the first incident that brought that to mind is what I call the hard hat incident. It was late one afternoon, and I was called to my boss's office, and he told me that we're going to create a new organization within environmental. We want you to lead that organization. I had no time to prepare for it. It was going to be announced the next morning at our staff meeting, which it was. Let me just say that the reaction from the group, which was all men who are older than me, was very, very icy. When we walked back over to a shared room that I shared with those same men, one of them picked up their hard hat and threw it against the wall as hard as they could. So I'm thinking to myself, this is how I start my first supervisory position and at a nuclear power plant. How am I going to deal with this? And I think the only thing that came to mind is that don't tell them you can do it. You just show them that you can do it. And that's what I set out to do. I think that's really one of the things that's moved throughout my career is if there's any doubts, just show them you can do it. So it was very heartwarming when it was about a year and a half later, that same gentleman that heaved that hard hat said to me kind of sheepishly, I think this has worked out okay after all. That was probably the most positive thing he could say. So
took him a while.
Yeah, it did take a while. And I also want to talk, though, about before this call started, we were talking about quality and continual performance improvement. Man, is that where I first got my appreciation for management systems. Working at a nuclear plant is all about management systems. We didn't talk about it like it was a management system, but all the elements were in place. And so that's why I felt really happy to be able, 20 years after working there, to bring management systems in the environmental safety and health area broader to AEP. Some of those of you who work at AEP now in the environmental area, if you've heard about MESH, Managing Environmental Safety and Health, that was my baby, or my team's baby. So finally, before we move on, I'll say that it was very stressful. I swear to you guys, my hair is this color from working at Cook Plant. I would be there and I would find a piece of hair on my desk that was brown and then white. And I found that all the time. So I was graying at a very early age. It was a very stressful time. The organization was composed of primarily nuclear Navy retirees. They ran it like a military, which is great when you need a quality organization, but it can also be very stressful. And I think that kind of led me down on my path of imbalance and work life balance. So we'll talk about that later too. Yeah.
Do you want to jump to that now, or do you want to?
Well,
No.
I think no, I think there's some points later on. Let's move to the next question.
Okay. All right. Okay. So speaking of agility, um, okay. So I think it's kind of just a maybe stereotype is the wrong word, but people maybe equate career agility with job hopping, right? Being able
Right.
to bounce between jobs. But how do you see career agility, and how do you continue to grow and stretch, at AEP and even beyond, if you want to bring in any of that?
Sure. So for those of you who work at power plants right now, I know there's at least one of you on, and sometimes it can feel like an isolated place, right? But for whatever reason, early on, I tended to develop networks. I developed networks with the environmental organization at corporate, with the safety and health organization, other power plants, the environmental affairs managers at all of the power plants across the AEP system, the local distribution region. And like I said, it wasn't intentionally trying to develop a network or look for a new position. I was really just more curious about how does energy get generated and distributed across the grid. But it really paid off for me when it enhanced my visibility within American Electric Power, which, yeah, paid off later. I also, whenever offered a leadership program, I took it. So I would definitely advise everyone on this call to, if you have the opportunity to participate in any kind of leadership program, yes, it adds more to your plate, but I always feel like it's worth its while. So after working about Cook Plant for about 7 or 8 years, we talked about the environmental and nuclear power. Well, environmental compliance was taken very seriously at a nuclear power plant just because they take everything very seriously. But as this was spreading across the United States, again in the late 1980s, early 1990s, the states started becoming more involved. The states wanted to regulate more closely any emitters that were in those states. So AEP decided we need to create a web or network of state environmental affairs managers that will influence policy at the state level. So a new group was created, and I was tasked to be the environmental affairs manager for Indiana Michigan Power, which was kind of an escape for me from nuclear. Even though I really felt like I learned a ton there, as I said, it was a very stressful environment. And that launched me into probably the most interesting part of my career, which is the public policy aspects. And we'll talk about that later. Eventually, I went on to manage that whole team and then take on additional roles as climate change was becoming a more serious issue for the utility industry. And also environmental stewardship. AEP launched an initiative for that, and that was put on my plate as well.
Nice. Do you think, quick side question, do you think your ability to, maybe ability is not the right word, but because you were working in a nuclear plant, but not a nuclear engineer or not a formal military nuclear person, do you think that influenced your ability to network and kind of be curious and reach out? Like you were just coming to the plant with a different mindset maybe than the others there. Just a theory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I definitely appreciated the safety culture, the absolute focus on safety and quality and on time. But, maybe we need to soften things up a little bit. Not everybody responds to a military type atmosphere. And I think I did bring a little bit of that while still being, the safety and compliance being the ultimate goal in the organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Okay, so climate change, policy, such important work, right? We can't our industry is too big and too connected to make these kind of decisions and implement these policies in a bubble, right? Where we need some alignment. So tell us more about your work on climate change. And again, I've had the honor of working with Diane for a few years now, so I I know some pretty cool stories of hers. So hoping she's gonna share a few of those.
I think
So
we got time for one really good one.
at least.
Yes. Okay, so put this in perspective. For those of you familiar with AEP, probably most on the call, but just so we're all on the same playing field. Back in the early 2000s, AEP was the largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the United States and in North America and in the Western Hemisphere. I mean, and I would be very upfront with people about that when I would talk to them, because I took that cue from leadership. AEP wanted to be completely accountable for that fact, but they also were very upfront with, we need to develop the technologies, and that's going to take time until we can really make those big dents in our greenhouse gas emissions. As you can imagine, with that status of being the Western Hemisphere's largest emitter, there was intense pressure by stakeholders to do something now, do something now. So what I was part of the team then at AEP to try to figure out what that was. So there was really, I think, a three-legged stool that we built, per se. One was joining the Chicago Climate Exchange. If you haven't heard of that, that was the United States' first voluntary, yet legally binding platform for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And essentially, AEP would buy a certain amount of offsets or credits to apply against their goals towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Another thing we did was to look at the other gases that AEP impacted. One of those is sulfur hexafluoride that's used in high voltage electrical equipment. And it has global warming potential that is 24,000 times that of carbon dioxide. So any leaks that we could mitigate from high voltage electrical equipment, we focused on that. The other thing that we did, and where I really got involved, was addressing global deforestation and afforestation. Afforestation is the creation of forests where in areas that had previously been deforested. Now, AEP acknowledged that doing all these three things wasn't going to really offset a lot of AEP's emissions, but it was something, right? And it was that investment in technology over time that was really going to take AEP there. So just to make sure we're, again, on the same board, why forests? Because forests are carbon sinks. They sequester carbon. So when forests are destroyed, let's say in South America for cattle farming, beef, the demand for beef internationally, that carbon is released back into the atmosphere. And the Nature Conservancy, which became one of AEP's big partners, they estimate that between 13 and 21% of all carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, come from global deforestation. So it's a really big number. So I became the head of finding these partners to partner with to create these projects. So you would think that environmental organizations like Greenpeace and Sierra Club would relish the chance to have AEP pay them millions of dollars to invest in these projects. No, because their view was whatever we do with AEP in these forests, if that allows a coal-fired power plant in southern Indiana or West Virginia to run one day longer, we don't want that. And so this became a global international battlefield of these carbon emissions. And you think about it, we're trying to preserve these rainforests that have some of the world's most biodiverse places and habitat that you can find nowhere else that are being threatened, yet they didn't want to work with us. Fortunately, there were two organizations that would work with us, the Nature Conservancy and the Conservation Fund. They came right out and said, we can't solve climate change and global deforestation in a vacuum from utilities and big industries. We need to partner with them on these solutions. So that's really where I got involved. It led to me attending global climate change negotiations, the international ones that you hear about every year that are held all around the world. And wow, that was really an eye-opening experience seeing, people from nations all around the world and the people from the low-lying island countries talking about that their islands are disappearing because of, sea level rise. It was just really a wake-up call. And then the other thing that was so cool about this phase of my life was actually traveling to these projects. So flying to Bolivia, Brazil, and Belize, and seeing these places that very few Americans saw. It was also a little bit scary. Picture yourself in a 6-seater airplane with some guy you just trust knows how to fly this plane, right? And you see, we're starting to descend and you see the strip cut out of a rainforest, and that's where we're going to land. So, if you guys know an author called Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, many years ago, he wrote a book called The Lost World. And that book went on to become the inspiration for movies like King Kong and Jurassic Park. That book was written about his experience at one of the same places that I got to go on one of these trips, and one of the areas that AEP preserved in Bolivia. Really cool. So this leads me to my story, right? And so Brenda mentioned that I did get to meet some famous people during this time because of going to climate change negotiations in particular. So at one of the COPs, or conferences and parties, there was a special whole day set aside for this whole issue of deforestation and biodiversity. So I was part of putting together a panel that included my boss at the time, Dennis Welch, Al Gore, former Vice President of the United States and rabid environmentalist, Richard Branson, the head of Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Records, all that, also big environmentalist, and Jane Goodall. And I know there was a couple others, but I can't remember who it was. So Jane was very smart, and she sat next to my boss, recognizing that he came from American Electric Power, who has deep pockets, right? And so from from the very beginning, I think she had it in her mind that she was going to see if there were any partnering opportunities with AEP, because Jane was, as you know, she was a big chimpanzee researcher, throughout her entire adult life, and over the years became passionate not only about preserving chimpanzee habitat, but growing more of that habitat, and then also reaching out to the youth of the world, because she recognized in them that they're going to be the solution to all these climate change and biodiversity problems. So AEP agreed to partner with the Jane Goodall Foundation. And I don't remember how many millions of dollars we gave, but it was for chimpanzee habitat in Tanzania, where she did her original research. So one of the things we asked her was, please, the next time you come to the United States, would you please come to Central Ohio and do some events with us? And she graciously agreed to do that. Most of them were focused in the Columbus area, again, focusing on girls and young women, really talking to them about the importance of biodiversity and climate change, and really inspiring them. And I saw the faces of these kids just light up when they met her. So we also decided, though, that while she was in town, we were going to take her to the wilds. So those of you who are familiar with Central Ohio, you know that the wilds are reclaimed mine lands that AEP has turned into a conservation area for threatened and endangered species like zebras and rhinoceros, that sort of thing. So we flew her in the AEP corporate jet to Zanesville, Ohio. Why we didn't just drive, I don't know. That was not responsible from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective. Took her to the wilds and introduced her to the people that run that, who were just blown away by meeting her. But the funny part is coming up. So we drove back to the airport, and it was late afternoon, early evening, and the pilots of the AEP jet said we could not leave because there was a storm front coming in. So you might as well go have dinner in Zanesville, Ohio. So whoever has the photo, if you could throw that up here now. So this photo, I asked Jane specifically if she minded if I took a picture of this. And I took a picture of her. Okay, it's coming up. So I would like to point out, I'm still waiting for it. Still waiting for it. Okay, here she is. Here she is. Note a couple of things. What kind of restaurant are we in? Did we take her somewhere fancy? No, this is a Denny's. Denny's restaurant. And nobody in this Denny's had any idea who she was. this was a complete pinch me moment that I'll never forget. It was such a pinch me moment. That's why I asked if I could take a picture of her. Furthermore, she's wearing sunglasses and it's the evening and she has her hand wrapped up. Why is that? Well, Jane has quite a few friends in the entertainment industry and really all around the world. As it turns out, the week before she was in Ohio, she was at one of her good friends' house, Dave Matthews of Dave Matthews Band. She had gotten up in the middle of the night to use what she thought was the bathroom, but it turned out to be the stairs to the basement. So she tumbled down the stairs and had a big black eye, and her arm was in that whatever wrapped up like you see. So the entire time we were with her, she couldn't sign any books. So instead, we bought her a stamp pad, and she would stamp her thumb in the ink and then stamp the books. So needless to say, that was an amazing 2 days that I got to spend with her, going to all the events in Ohio. And I was really sad to see her pass, what was it, last fall. And really, I think she served as an inspiration for us. Career agility, sure, and never giving up and really fighting that fight and seeing the acknowledging the importance of young people and youth and turning around the global problems that we have now. So, yeah. Climate change, what a crazy issue to work on back in the early days.
Well,
Yeah.
and what a great, some really great examples of where collaboration is more of the answer, right? And and recognizing, I don't know, what's the metaphor, eat the elephant one bite at a time, kind of these are some big things, and can't get there alone. And do you have one of these books with the thumbprint?
I do have one. I'm so thrilled to have it. I'm never going to give it away.
No, nor should you. Hold on to that
Yes.
forever. Okay, so quick pivot back to kind of career work stuff. Were there any moments where you had to raise your hand for new opportunities rather than wait for the next step? Like, as you know, we've got people of all levels of their career on the call. So what would you share as far as that goes?
Sure. And here is where I'm going to start getting into more of my comments about work-life balance and lack thereof, frankly. I thought about this question a lot, and I literally could not think of one time that I said, wait a minute, I want to do that, or give me that challenge. And I think it was because they were being dumped on me just as a matter of course. And I think back, and I shouldn't say dumped on me, that's not the right way to put it, but I think back on some of the specific challenges, and not only were they challenges, but they were things I had to figure out. Like nobody, there was no training for what I was trying to figure out. Let me give you some examples. So when I was at that power plant that was under construction for Public Service Indiana, they discovered, oh, we need to have someone who has a pesticide applicator's license. Diane, go get that. Okay, good thing I was good in math because you got to do a lot of math. Same thing with, hey, we need did an environmental impact statement to get this power plant license to evolve into the operational phase of the license. Okay, I figured out how to do that. I was the lead author for what they call the environmental impact statement, delivered the volumes in person to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission headquarters in Bethesda, Maryland. So you can imagine how crushing it was when that power plant was then a few months later decided to be shut down after all that labor of love going into that licensing for that plant. Then when I got to Cook Plant, do you know that Cook Plant has its own sewage treatment plant? Think about it. They didn't want to take any chances for radionuclides getting somehow into a municipal water treatment system. So we needed a sewage treatment plant operator. Go figure out what licenses you need. Go pass the training. I figured out that. And then when I evolved into my public policy jobs, one of the things that was stressed to us that within a couple years, they wanted us to have a leadership position within some organization within the state. So I decided I was going to focus on the Michigan Manufacturers Association and became the chair of their environmental committee. Likewise, EEI, Edison Electric Institute, they decided this climate change thing's pretty big. We think we need to expand our environmental committee and have a separate climate change committee. I was the chair of that for a number of years. And then AP, being a big emitter of pollutants, early on decided it's not a regulatory requirement. We think it's a good idea to issue an environmental performance report where we talk openly and honestly about the impacts that we're having on the environment in terms of our air emissions, water emissions, hazardous waste. I was the author of that. So, and finally, back to the management system stuff. One of the last things that I did when I was at AEP was implement a system-wide environmental safety and health management system. Again, kind of really needing to assemble a team from across the system and just figure it out. So I enjoyed all those achievements, don't get me wrong, but did I have a good work-life balance? No. I missed school and athletic events all the time. But what's really sad is that a lot of these things were international events. Well, internationally, they don't recognize the same holidays as we do in the United States. So guess what? Climate change negotiations happen over Thanksgiving. Miss Thanksgiving. They happen over Mother's Day. Miss Mother's Day. Miss proms. I never saw none of my kids' proms. So I know, don't do that, people. I'm so glad that that's one of the changes that's come about in the industry, is that it's much more acceptable to have that work-life balance. And in retrospect, I really wish I would have done more of that. So.
Do you feel like you couldn't? I mean, you're not in control of the climate change negotiations, but
no,
so you can't really say no to that. But just so much other stuff, like you said, there you were being asked to do things that were not only new, but had a lot of visibility globally.
That's right. That's right.
Into them. And you couldn't really, there wasn't a lot of room for messing up.
That's right. And the thing is, I didn't really
pressure.
I know, and I didn't really ask for help. I should have asked for help too, or spread the load a little bit. But so that would be an additional advice. Don't be afraid to ask for help, for sure.
I know. Is somebody we got some really great advice bullets. We should be writing these down.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you touched on this a little bit, but the transition to leadership. So the hardest part of moving, because I think a lot of us struggle with this, or struggle to help others that are moving from a technical role into a leadership role that can that can be challenging. Not all technical experts are cut out for leadership, and and again, the transition from being a peer to a boss can be difficult. So how was that experience for you, and do you have any more things we can add to the list here?
Sure. So actually, I found out that I was actually better suited to be in the leadership role than doing that deep technical work. So it was kind of, and there was also at the time, I had this feeling, a feeling that I wasn't like any of the other women in the workplace that I was dealing with. And that's what led me to what I'm calling a light bulb moment. One of the leadership initiatives that I participated in that AP sponsored started out with all of us doing the Myers-Briggs personality test. So hopefully many of you on the call have either done that test or some other familiar or another type of those tests. Well, that was early, in the phases of anybody doing that. That was so insightful. And without getting into too much detail, I came out as an INTJ, which is introverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging. If you Google that, it's rare for men. It's extremely rare for women. The scientists say that anywhere between 0.5% to 2% of the global female population are INTJs. Well, no wonder I felt weird, right? I could go through my whole life and not ever meet another weirdo like me, right? Still don't, if there's any INTJs on this call, I want to talk to you. So what is that? If you look at Google, what are the traits of INTJ? They come across as no nonsense, which can be intimidating. Yes. They challenge gender roles. Yes. They prioritize logic and efficiency over emotions. Yes. People told me I was cold. They're motivated or fulfilled more by careers than by relationships. Very private. And again, don't fit in with other women. So I even recall, it really helped me to understand a couple of comments that I heard from men before I understood. One of them said, and he didn't say this in a way that was like coming on to me, but he said, I've never met a woman like you before. And I think it was because he was like, what is this person?
Sounds like this chapter 1 of a book. Diane.
All right, I see we got an ENTJ, so that's close. All right. And then I had 2 men say, you scare me, Diane. Like,
did you say thank you?
I know. And so, but it really puts things into perspective for me now, because I have to realize, okay, how do you have to adapt your behavior so that you don't come across like that, right? And then when you work in teams, you got to know, like, the aspects of me are going to drive people in this team crazy. But that's when it's really good to know what all the people on the team are, because then you find out what's going to drive you crazy about them, whether they're super detail oriented, which would just whatever. So when I put together that team for the environmental safety and health management program, that's one of the first things we did, is do a team effort to find out what we all were, so that we understood where each other was coming from and we could actually joke about it. Like, Brenda, you're being an N.
Yeah, right.
So yeah. So again, if you don't know your personality type, I would highly recommend that, and I would highly recommend, if you're ever in a team situation, to take the time up front to do that with your team, and it will shed immense insights into how you can best work together, I guess. Yeah.
Huge. And just like a little plug, I know we did, was it just last year or 2 years ago, WiNUP Ohio sponsored the DISC for a lot of our members. And, I know we have new members since then, but anyway, that's just another example of understanding your style, your preferences, the way you operate and communicate. And then, like Diane said, how others, yes, I tell my teammates, you're being a D. And I don't mean that in like a swear word sort of way. I mean, like,
No,
you are a D and you're being a D. Like, lean into your S, try again. Like,
yeah.
So yes, just another totally plug. All right. So I know I think we're doing okay. I see a couple questions popping in, but we're good. So we're going to keep rolling.
Okay.
So after nearly 30 years at AEP, you transitioned to TRC. And then a couple years later, we crossed paths.
Yeah.
Did that feel risky? How did you feel about that risk? Walk us through that transition.
It definitely felt risky. Yes. So I know that even in the last couple of years, for some of the organizations that are participating in this call right now, that you guys have seen immense changeovers in the leadership of your companies and immense changes in culture. Back in 2013, I would say that also happened at AEP, not to the degree that I've seen it in the last couple of years, but it was one of those phases of, the changing of the guard and reevaluating structures, that sort of thing. So as part of that, there was a lot of scrutiny around officer level people, myself, especially around those that had few direct reports. And then in my case in particular, I was still in Michigan. I mean, that's almost unheard of, that a vice president is not associated with any like corporate headquarters or operating company headquarters. They're just like some remote person working off by themselves. I've been working remote for over 25 years. I think I was one of the first remote employees at AP. So it wasn't a surprise to me when my position was challenged. And at least at the time, AEP had an option that if your position was going to be demoted or like re-envisioned, it was going to result in a demotion of any kind, you could take a severance package. So I thought long and hard about that. And, you know, this Diane that I've been describing as this big go-getter and I have to achieve and something came over me. And I think it was the realization that, you know, I've had a great run. I've been able to shine in my role at AP. Let's give somebody else that opportunity to shine. And again, I admit that was uncharacteristic of me, but it really, I mean, I really searched in my heart and that's what my answer was. So I decided to follow my heart. So I decided to take the severance package and I would figure it out. Didn't know what I was going to do when I grow up. You guys, Brenda, you know me. I still say that to this day. I think it's great that we don't know what we're going to do when we grow up because it insinuates that we're always learning and growing and not pigeonholed and, you know, in a position that we're in. So that's when I came across TRC and was actually hired to work on their sustainability initiatives. Part of the transformation that I saw at AEP was they were moving from environmental reporting and compliance to the larger sustainability reporting. And it was very exciting to be part of that. But I also saw where I wanted to give that team, you know, more runway to grow. So but shortly thereafter joining TRC was also when all the capital budgets at the utilities were starting to blow up. I mean, they had all these new plans for these aggressive growth targets for new transmission lines, for new renewable energy projects, that sort of thing. And TRC, rightfully so, had this vision that, you know, we think that this is going to be a real thing, that utilities aren't going to be able to accomplish this by themselves, and they're going to need to rely on companies like TRC and now WSP. I should have mentioned earlier that TRC is recently acquired by WSP, also a good utility industry partner. So a new organization was formed within TRC that was really a business development organization focused on electric utilities. And that's where I ended up landing, covering the Midwest area. And if you don't mind, Brenda, I'm going to just go into the next question because it flows right into it. So back to my Myers-Briggs test. I stands for introvert. Introvert, business development? No, that doesn't really go together. No, does not go together. Very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But think about the utility industry. A lot of introverts in the utility industry, right? Who am I selling to? I'm selling mostly to introverts. And these are people, these are companies that need us. I'm not selling a thing, a widget, a service, or a project. I'm selling a partnership, right? And they need partners. And that's when I felt really good about being with TRC, because TRC and WSP share those same philosophies and core values of utilities. Again, safety, quality, delivering on time. So I think it was those circumstances that allowed me to do well in my role in business development. And I'm happy to say that I have been successful being in sales. I can't believe it. Just looking at AEP in particular, and what you guys from AEP know, it's just blowing up over there. We've taken the AEP account from, it's now over 100 times in terms of revenue than what it was when I first came to this role at AEP, and continuing to grow, TRC, I should say, and continuing to go up from there. So I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I guess that's the summary.
You got lots of time.
Yeah, right.
Plenty of time. Plenty of time. All right. Well, that's amazing. Amazing. Well, you talked a little bit about, you know, kind of the first real thing that happened in your adult career that kind of set off this chain of events that we've been talking about was, you know, losing your job at PSI, right? But what other setbacks or something unexpected happened? Is there anything that you haven't already touched on that you think would be helpful just being real, like there's always going to be some setbacks. There's always going to be some moments of maybe insecurity or, that just with the benefit of hindsight, we can look back and say, oh, that was a real turning point.
Yeah. Well, I think the big one for me really was that first one, my first real job. Back then, utility jobs were jobs for life, quote unquote. And that's really what I thought it was going to be. And then having competed for this promotion to go to a nuclear power plant under construction and beating out all the guys, they didn't lose their jobs. I did, because they stayed at the corporate office. So I thought it was completely unfair. And I was a textbook case of the 5 stages of grief. What is it? Denial, anger, bargaining, all that. I went through all that. It is the real thing. But, so I guess my advice is it's really true what they say about some, adversities and setbacks. If you put your heart to it and your mind to it, there really is a silver lining. And that losing my job really launched my career with AEP that, I never could have dreamed that having those experiences that I had at AEP. So I'm actually grateful that I lost that job. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it is weird to look back and think about some of those moments that just seem so just how am I going to get out of this cloud
Yes.
or mess or bud or whatever, and like you said, and see how maybe it turned out to be okay.
Exactly.
So, all right, so you've given some amazing advice and some amazing ideas and tips and tricks. What does career success mean to you now, especially compared to maybe earlier in your career, as we continue to redefine ourselves and what's important?
Yeah, and I think this is a great question and a really great one to end with, because I think this is applies to everybody on this call. So at least for me in the phase of my career that I'm in now, obviously the last phases, it's not about me anymore. Success is not about me. It's cheesy. I know it sounds so cheesy, but Jane Goodall sounded cheesy too. It's really about making the world a better place for future generations. It really is about that for me. And think about in the utility industry, we are doing that every day. Now, maybe our specific job is not resulting in a renewable power or solar plant being built or a new transmission line being built, but we're all contributing to that. And all of those things are contributing to making the world a better place. It's addressing issues like climate change and biodiversity, more severe weather events that are impacting the wires all across the United States. If we can build a more resilient grid that'll ensure that power is there when we need it, we are making the world a better place. And thinking about the electrification of everything. So switching transportation and manufacturing over to processes powered by electricity. Again, another way to reduce and minimize emissions and greenhouse gases. So I think it's really something for all of us to think about, is whether, you see that in your daily job, you really are part of that whole movement. And it's something that we should be very proud to be a part of and contributing to.
Oh, well, that's just the mic drop. Right there.
Thank you.
I will not tarnish it with words.
Okay.
Angie, did we get any questions in the chat? I saw it pop in. I was not looking.
Angie's
Yes, got it. We have gotten some questions. So, first question from Stacy Mighton. Were there any opportunities that you had to say no to get to the career you wanted?
Say no to. Well, I definitely said no to moving to Columbus, which I'm sorry for all the people who live in Columbus, Ohio. But I already did this, right? So this is the western edge of Michigan and the eastern shore of Lake Michigan. And as far as I'm concerned, it's God's country. And if you haven't been here, this is the world's largest freshwater dune system, right? You think you're in the Caribbean. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So if you have an opportunity to go to Cook Plant for anything over there, please do. So, I mean, I think that was definitely a career limiting move for me. I said I was a vice president working remotely, very few reports. I could have picked up and moved to Columbus, and that would have extended my career longer. But again, I think it was more important to me to follow my heart, which is what I did, and live in a place that gives me inspiration every single day. I tell my kids that I can count on my hand the number of times I've gone down to the beach at Lake Michigan, and I regret going down there. I don't care if it's winter, spring, fall, whatever. That number is zero. Because it always is, it's just beautiful. So
follow your heart.
Yes, follow your heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever taken the disc?
I have, and I don't remember what my results were. I was so Myers-Briggs really stuck with me, but I remember thinking that the end result was very similar. Yeah.
I don't know Myers-Briggs all that well, but I would peg you like in the CD range, maybe. I'll send you the free version.
Okay, I'll do that.
And then going to your opposite would be me, the ENFP.
Okay. I appreciate you. Trust me, the world needs you. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to say. Is heaven help if you were ever on a team that was all composed of people like me? Oh, it would be awful. We all need diversity, for sure.
So our next question is from Julie. What skills are most important for someone transitioning from a technical role into a leadership position to focus on developing? And what practical steps can they take to build and apply those skills?
Oh, good question. Definitely participate in any and all leadership programs that you can get your hands on. I would say talk to your people, find out what keeps that I use in my business development role. What keeps you up at night? How can I help you? I think there's a tendency, especially if people are mid-career or later in their career, there's a tendency of managers to assume that those people know what they're doing. And that's not always a good conclusion to come to. Not know what they're doing, but couldn't use more guidance or encouragement or cheerleading. And I think there's a lot of employees who are out there too who are in roles that they don't necessarily love. What do you want to do when you grow up? I go back to that saying again. It might not be that job that they're in. So it's really thinking more strategically about who's on your team, what are their skill sets, really learning those and getting to know them. Yeah.
Thank you. So next question. Having built my utilities career at one company and recently stepping into a management role, how beneficial is it to gain experience at other organizations to continue progressing into higher leadership levels?
So by that, I'm assuming is the question don't spend all of your career at a utility? I mean, does it benefit to hop out and hop back in?
Julie, are you on right now? Would you want to elaborate?
Hi, yes, I am on. Thank you for answering my questions. I really appreciate it. Really love all your insight. I'm pretty much asking will it hold me back? So if I want to progress from a manager role to a director or a senior director or executive level leadership, will that hold me back by only having experience at one company?
Okay, from my experience at working at AEP, the old answer would have been no, it wouldn't hold you back. I don't know that that's the same as the current answer. And maybe I would open it up to others on this call who've actually done that. I mean, I have seen folks jump from utility to utility and definitely moved up the ladder. That's happening in Ohio. There's quite a few utilities located there in Ohio. We did have one of my coworkers jump from TRC to utility and then come back to TRC. And he really brought a broader understanding of what makes utilities today tick and what's important for them. So I don't know, is there anybody else that has advice who's moved from one utility to another that might be more contemporary than my experience?
I'll just while people are thinking about whether or not they want to come off mute. I think I've always been kind of in the contractor space, but I am a huge proponent and would very much advocate for cross training, whatever that is. So even if you are within the same company, having jobs in different departments, appreciating what different people go through, so you could maybe even get that still at the same company, but yeah. Anybody else?
I don't have any experience in this, but shameless plug for WiNUP, because being in this organization exposes you to people in all the different utilities, and through different programs and networking opportunities, you can get to learn about a broader piece of the industry.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
So I don't see any other questions on here, but Diane, what organizations outside of work were you in that you really felt were beneficial to you?
Sure. So I already mentioned two of them, and those were the Nature Conservancy and the National Wildlife Federation. Is that the one I meant? National Habitat Conservation Fund. And the reason why I was involved with those, again, went back to the climate change issue, but I actually became personally involved with them because I'm very passionate about all things environmental, right? And talking to people about ecosystem services. In a nutshell, that means that all the services that the environment gives us for free, whether it's pollination or water filtration or air purification, that we completely take for granted. And these are issues that, again, everything goes back to environment and climate change. So those two organizations are very like-minded in understanding that businesses and industry need to be part of the solution and need to have a seat at the table. So those, and I think too, when I do quit working full-time, that's what I'm going to volunteer for, those types of organizations, and educate more people.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Feel free to come off mute and ask your questions. So we're sounding quiet then.
Yeah. No, amazing. Well, so yes, if most of the folks on here at least can get a hold of me. If you think of any additional questions or whatever you want to share with Diane, and Diane, on behalf of WiNUP and Angie, you can overstep me here, but thank you for joining us. I did such a good job keeping my hands under control right up until the end.
Right. I spent the last 2 weeks with Brenda and in person, and I said, "Do you talk with your hands all the time?" she said she literally has to sit on them. So
I put them back under my legs. So but thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And again, it's been an honor. And
thank you.
I will hand it back to Angie.
Yeah, Diane, I want to echo what Brenda said and also thank you. You would be in that category of heroes to me, people that are just incredible. And I can't believe I've even had the opportunity to meet you and talk to you.
You're too kind. Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming and talking to us, sharing your story, your guidance and everything. On behalf of my chapter and from comments, we all thank you. We thank you so much for what you've taught us today, for your time, your wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone in the chapter for coming. So with
great
that,
turning.
Yeah, so with that, I'm actually going to give everyone back 10 minutes of their time. And ladies, thank you again. Diane, enjoy that beautiful Michigan weather.
All right.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks all.